The human mind is a spectacular tool for survival, a brilliant calculator designed to solve problems, anticipate dangers, and categorize the world, but it has one devastating flaw: it does not know how to turn itself off. We live in an era where the mind is constantly overstimulated, perpetually running in the background like a heavy software application that drains the battery of our soul, and yet we treat this chronic overthinking as a sign of intelligence or a necessary burden of modern life. If you are someone who thinks too much, you know exactly what this feels like. It is the exhausting weight of replay and preview, where you spend your days analyzing past conversations to find hidden slights and mapping out future scenarios to prevent disasters that will likely never happen. You are trapped in a prison of your own making, pacing back and forth between the walls of your own thoughts, entirely blind to the fact that the door is wide open. More than 2.5 millennia ago, a prince named Siddhartha Gautama sat under the shade of a Bodhi tree and discovered a profound truth about this exact human predicament, a teaching so radical and yet so deceptively simple that 99% of people completely overlook it, even those who actively study mindfulness and philosophy. The tragedy of modern spirituality is that it has turned the Buddha's insights into an intellectual exercise, a series of complex doctrines to be memorized, debated, and analyzed. Which ironically only feeds the very monster of overthinking that the Buddha sought to destroy. People buy books on Zen, download meditation apps, and listen to hour-long lectures on the nature of consciousness, turning the antidote into a new form of poison by creating more thoughts about how to stop thinking. But the ultimate teaching of the Buddha was never about adding more furniture to the room of your mind. It was about realizing that you are not the room, you are not the furniture, and you don't actually have to sit in the chair of your anxieties just because it happens to be there. To understand why almost everyone ignores this ultimate teaching, you have to look at how we typically try to solve the problem of an overactive brain. Because our instinctive reaction to overthinking is always more thinking. When an uncomfortable, anxious, or obsessive thought enters our consciousness, our default setting is to argue with it, analyze it, or try to suppress it with positive affirmations. If the mind whispers that you are going to fail an upcoming presentation, you immediately launch a counter-argument, listing your past successes, or you try to force yourself to visualize a triumphal outcome. This creates an internal civil war, a frantic chess match where you are playing both the white pieces and the black pieces, which means no matter who wins, you lose, because the energy expended is entirely your own. The Buddha recognized that trying to fight a thought with another thought is like trying to wash away blood with blood, it only makes the stain larger and deeper. He observed that the human mind is like a wild monkey that has been stung by a scorpion, swinging erratically from branch to branch, screaming in pain and confusion, and if you try to catch that monkey by force, it will only bite you and swing faster. The 99% of people who miss the core of the teaching spend their entire lives trying to tame the monkey, trying to train it to sit still, or trying to understand why the scorpion stung it in the first place. The ultimate teaching, however, bypasses the monkey entirely and focuses on the tree, or more accurately, on the space through which the monkey swings. This overlooked core is found within the deeper dimensions of what the Buddha called anatta, the doctrine of non-self, combined with the practical application of bare attention, but stripped of all the religious and monastic jargon. When you strip away the cultural layers, the ultimate teaching is this: your thoughts are not you, they are not yours, they do not belong to you, and they are not a reflection of reality, they are simply a temporary weather pattern passing through the sky of your awareness. The overthinker's fundamental error is the unconscious assumption that because a voice is speaking inside their head, they are obligated to listen to it, believe it, and identify with it. We treat our thoughts as if they are absolute commands or objective truths, rather than what they actually are, biological secretions of a highly evolved organ that is obsessed with safety. Just as your stomach secretes acid to digest food, your brain secretes thoughts to digest reality, and just as you do not identify with your stomach acid, you have no logical reason to identify with the random, anxious, or repetitive thoughts that bubble up into your awareness. The vast majority of people spend their lives drowning in the river of their thoughts, fighting the current, trying to swim upstream, or trying to reshape the banks of the river, while the Buddha stands on the shore and reminds us that we could simply step out of the water. This act of stepping out is not a matter of stopping the river from flowing, it is a shift in perspective from being the victim of the current to being the silent observer on the bank. When you practice this ultimate teaching, you stop trying to fix your mind, because you realize that the part of you trying to fix the mind is the very mind that is broken. This is the ultimate trap that catches almost everyone, the illusion that there is a thinker who is separate from the thoughts, a little manager sitting behind your eyes who needs to organize your cognitive landscape. The Buddha dismantled this illusion by pointing out that there is no solid, unchanging entity called a thinker, there is only the process of thinking itself, arising and passing away due to various conditions. When an anxious thought arises, such as the fear that you are unloved or inadequate, the overthinker immediately builds a story around it, linking it to childhood memories, current relationships, and future catastrophes, thereby turning a momentary puff of mental smoke into a raging forest fire. The ultimate teaching invites you to drop the story entirely and look directly at the raw sensation of the thought itself, recognizing it as an impermanent phenomenon that has no power over you unless you give it your attention. If you do not feed a thought with your attention, if you do not argue with it, agree with it, or try to push it away, it will obey the universal law of impermanence, known as anicca, and dissolve back into the nothingness from which it came. A thought only has as much reality as you invest in it. And the moment you see through its illusory nature, its grip on your emotions begins to evaporate. The reason 99% of people ignore this is that it feels too passive, almost irresponsible, to a mind that has been conditioned to believe that worry is a form of work. We mistakenly believe that if we stop worrying about our problems, we are admitting defeat, being lazy, or leaving ourselves vulnerable to disaster, because our ego derives a strange sense of control from overthinking. Worrying gives us the false impression that we are doing something about our situation, acting as a cognitive shield against the unpredictable nature of reality, even though it changes absolutely nothing about the external world and only erodes our internal peace. The Buddha's ultimate teaching requires a profound act of courage, the willingness to leave your thoughts alone, to let them be as wild, messy, or terrifying as they want to be, without stepping into the ring to fight them. This is the practice of radical non-interference, where you allow the mind to spin its wheels in the mud while you simply sit back and watch the wheels spin, knowing that eventually, the fuel of your attention will run out and the engine will fall silent. It is the realization that peace is not the absence of thoughts, but the total absence of resistance to whatever thoughts happen to appear. To bring this down from the clouds of philosophy into the reality of your daily life, imagine your mind as a crowded, chaotic airport terminal, where thousands of travelers, representing your thoughts, worries, and memories, are rushing back and forth, shouting, arguing, and dropping their luggage. The average person behaves like an overwhelmed airport security guard, trying to intercept every single traveler, interrogate them, find out where they are going, check their passports, and argue with them about their destinations. You run from one thought to another, getting pulled into their dramas, boarding their flights to catastrophe, and wondering why you feel so exhausted at the end of the day. The ultimate teaching is the realization that you do not work for the airport, you are not the security guard, you are not the janitor, and you are certainly not the passengers. You are simply the space of the terminal itself, the vast, open, silent structure through which all this chaos passes, completely untouched by the noise, unaffected by the delays, and unbothered by the crowds. When an anxious thought about your future enters the terminal, you do not have to buy a ticket and board that plane, you can simply watch it walk past, watch it board its own flight, and watch it fly away into the distance, remaining perfectly still in your own ground of being. This shift from the passenger to the space is what true liberation looks like, and it can happen in a single fraction of a second, the very moment you remember to wake up from the dream of your own mind. It does not require years of sitting in caves, it does not require mastering complex yoga postures, and it does not require changing your personality or your life circumstances, it only requires a relentless, gentle willingness to stop taking your own mind so seriously. The next time you find yourself caught in a suffocating loop of overthinking, when your chest feels tight and your brain is screaming with 100 different scenarios, stop trying to fix it, stop trying to calm down, and stop trying to think your way out of the maze. Instead, lean back mentally, take a deep breath, and ask yourself a simple question that cuts through the illusion: who is the one aware of these thoughts? In that tiny gap between the thought and the awareness of the thought, you will find a profound, untouched silence that has been there your entire life, waiting for you to realize that you were never the noise in the room. but the stillness that allows the noise to be heard. This is the ultimate teaching that the world ignores, because the world is addicted to the noise, but for the one who understands it, it is the end of the war, the beginning of freedom, and the ultimate return to your true home.